The night sky above Daehyun's farm exploded with fire. He had been walking back from checking the irrigation system when he saw it. A massive object tore through the clouds, trailing flames and smoke. It screamed across the darkness like an angry comet. The sound was deafening. It made his chest vibrate and his ears ring. Daehyun dropped his tools and ran. The burning thing was falling toward his wheat fields. He could see it clearly now. It was not a meteor. It had a shape, wings, a body, some kind of machine. The object crashed into the western field with a thunderous boom that shook the ground beneath his feet. Dirt and burning wheat flew into the air. He stopped running and stood at the edge of the crater. His heart pounded in his chest. Smoke billowed up from the wreckage. The machine was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was black and sleek with strange symbols carved into its surface. Parts of it still glowed red from the heat of entry. Small fires burned in the wheat around it. Daehyun heard a sound, a groan. Something moved inside the wreckage. He grabbed a metal rod from his tractor and approached carefully. His hands shook. Whatever was in there might be dangerous, but it might also need help. He had always believed that all living things deserved kindness. Even strange things that fell from the sky. A section of the machine hissed and opened. Steam poured out. Through the smoke, Daehyun saw movement. A figure stumbled out and collapsed on the ground. He ran forward without thinking. The metal rod fell from his hands. The creature on the ground was not human. Daehyun's breath caught in his throat. She was tall, taller than any person he had ever seen. Her skin was covered in dark scales that gleamed like polished stone in the firelight. They were black with hints of deep purple. Her face was angular and sharp, with high cheekbones and a strong jaw. Two small horns curved back from her forehead. Her eyes opened. They glowed amber like hot coals. They locked onto Daehyun. He froze. Those eyes held intelligence and pain, and something else. Fear. The creature tried to move but gasped and fell back. Dark blood seeped from a wound in her side. Her breathing was labored and wet. Daehyun knelt beside her. She watched him warily. Her hand moved to her belt where some kind of weapon hung, but she was too weak to draw it. She said something in a language he did not understand. Her voice was deep and resonant. It sounded like distant thunder. He held up his empty hands. The universal gesture of peace. He pointed to her wound and then to his barn. She understood. Her glowing eyes studied his face for a long moment. She seemed to be deciding whether to trust him. Finally, she gave a small nod. Getting her to the barn was difficult. She was heavy and kept losing consciousness. Daehyun half carried, half dragged her across the field. His muscles burned with the effort. She mumbled words in her strange language. Sometimes her eyes would flutter open, and she would look at him with confusion, as if she could not believe he was helping her. Inside the barn, he cleared a space in the hay and made a bed. He brought blankets from his house, clean water, bandages, medical supplies meant for his livestock. He did not know if they would work on her, but he had to try. When he touched her wound, she hissed and her hand shot out. She grabbed his wrist. Her grip was like iron. Her claws dug into his skin slightly, not enough to draw blood. A warning. Her eyes blazed as she stared at him. Daehyun did not pull away. He met her gaze steadily and pointed to the medical supplies. Then to her wound. Then back to the supplies. She released his wrist slowly. She laid back and closed her eyes, giving him permission, trusting him. Daehyun worked quickly. The wound was deep. Whatever had caused it had cut through her scales and into the flesh beneath. He cleaned it as best he could, applied pressure to stop the bleeding, wrapped it tightly with bandages. She did not cry out, did not flinch, but he could see the pain in the way her jaw clenched, in the way her hands gripped the hay beneath her. When he finished, she was breathing harder. Her eyes opened again. They found his face. For the first time, she spoke in a way he could almost understand. She touched her chest with one clawed hand. Then she made a sound, a name. It sounded like Hyejin. She said it again, more clearly. Hyejin. Daehyun understood. He touched his own chest. Said his name. Daehyun. She repeated it slowly, testing the foreign sounds in her mouth. Hyejin's eyes closed. Her breathing became deeper, more regular. She had fallen into an exhausted sleep. Daehyun sat back on his heels and looked at her. A dragon woman from the stars, sleeping in his barn, trusting him to keep her safe. He did not understand what had happened, did not know where she came from or why she had crashed. But he knew one thing. She was hurt and alone, And he would help her. He stood and walked to the barn door. Outside, the wheat field still burned in small patches. The wreckage of her ship smoldered in the crater. In the distance, he could see the lights of the nearby town. He wondered if anyone else had seen the crash. Wondered if someone would come looking. Daehyun looked back at Hyejin. She looked vulnerable in sleep. The fierce warrior reduced to someone who needed help. He made a decision. He would protect her, no matter what came. He did not know why he felt this way. Perhaps it was his nature. Perhaps it was something else. But the choice was made. He closed the barn door and locked it. Then he went to his house to gather more supplies. Food, water, more blankets. He did not sleep that night. He sat in the barn beside his strange guest, watching over her, making sure she kept breathing, making sure she stayed warm. As dawn broke over the fields, Hyejin still slept, but her breathing was stronger. The bleeding had stopped. She would survive. Daehyun allowed himself a small smile. He had done it. Saved a life, even a life as strange and impossible as this one. Outside, his wheat still needed tending. His animals needed feeding. Life on the farm went on, but nothing would ever be quite the same again. Hyejin woke to the sound of chickens. Her eyes opened slowly. For a moment, she did not remember where she was. Then the pain in her side reminded her. The crash, the battle, the human who had helped her. She turned her head and saw Daehyun sitting on a wooden stool near the door. He was carving something from a piece of wood. His hands moved with practiced ease. He noticed her movement and looked up. His face broke into a gentle smile. He set down his carving and brought her water in a simple clay cup. She took it carefully. Her hands were still weak. The water was cool and clean, better than anything on her warship. She drank deeply. Daehyun made gestures, asking if she was hungry. Hyejin nodded. He left and returned with food. Simple food, bread, cheese, fresh fruit. She ate slowly. Her body needed fuel to heal. In the Draconian Empire, wounded soldiers were given nutrient paste. This was different. This had flavor, care. Someone had made this food with their own hands. Over the next few days, Hyejin watched Daehyun work. He rose before dawn every morning, fed the animals, checked the crops, repaired broken fences, fixed machinery that looked ancient by her standards. He moved through his tasks with quiet efficiency, never complaining, never rushing. Just steady work. She noticed something strange. He sang while he worked. Not battle songs or victory chants like her people. Simple songs. Happy songs. Songs about the weather and the seasons and growing things. His voice was not particularly good, but there was joy in it. Contentment. She had never heard a warrior sing like that. On the third day, Hyejin managed to stand. Her wound still hurt, but she could move. Daehyun tried to make her rest, but she refused. She was not used to lying still. She followed him outside. The morning sun was bright. It warmed her scales. She breathed in air that smelled of earth and growing plants. Daehyun's farm was small, perhaps 20 acres. The house was simple, made of wood and stone. Nothing like the metal towers of her empire. But it was sturdy, well-maintained. Everything had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. She watched him work in the vegetable garden, pulling weeds, checking each plant, talking to them as if they could hear. A machine broke down. Some kind of water pump. Daehyun examined it carefully. He did not have replacement parts. Instead, he found pieces from other broken machines. He improvised, modified, made something new from something old. Within an hour, the pump worked again. Not perfectly, but well enough. Hyejin was impressed. In her world, broken things were discarded. New things replaced them. But Daehyun fixed and reused. He made things last. It was efficient in a way she had never considered. Not the efficiency of advanced technology, the efficiency of resourcefulness, of making do with what you had. That evening, as they sat in the barn, Hyejin tried to speak. Her translator implant had been damaged in the crash, but it still worked partially, enough for basic communication. She pointed to herself and then to the sky, tried to explain. She was a soldier, a warrior. There had been a battle. She had lost. Daehyun listened carefully. He did not seem afraid. When she finished, he asked a question. One word her translator could understand. Why? Why did she fight? Hyejin was confused. The answer was obvious. To win, to conquer, to prove strength. That was what warriors did. But Daehyun shook his head. He asked again, why? What was the purpose? What did she gain? Hyejin had never thought about it that way. She fought because she was bred to fight, because the Empire commanded it, because it was her nature. She tried to explain this. Daehyun looked sad. He said something her translator barely caught. All creatures deserve to live in peace. The concept baffled her. Peace was weakness. Peace meant you had nothing worth fighting for. In the Draconian Empire, the strong ruled. The weak served or died. It had always been this way. It would always be this way. She said this to Daehyun, expected him to understand, to agree. Instead, he asked another question. If she believed in strength, why did she accept help from someone weak? Why did she trust him? Why did she not take what she needed by force? Hyejin had no answer. She could have killed him easily. Taken his food, his shelter, made him serve her. But she had not. Would not. The thought felt wrong, but she did not understand why. Daehyun smiled. He told her that strength came in many forms. Physical power was only one. There was also the strength to be kind, to help others, to build instead of destroy, to grow things instead of taking them. He gestured to his farm, to the food she had eaten, to the animals that trusted him. This was his strength. Creating life, nurturing it, protecting it. Hyejin thought about this for a long time. In her empire, farmers were the lowest caste. They were weak, expendable. They existed only to feed the warriors. But Daehyun did not seem weak. He worked harder than any soldier she knew. He solved problems, adapted, survived. He did it all without weapons, without armor, without orders from above. He did it because he chose to. The next morning, Hyejin asked if she could help. Daehyun was surprised but agreed. He gave her simple tasks. Gathering eggs from the chickens, filling water troughs, stacking hay, work that a soldier would consider beneath them. But Hyejin did it, and found something unexpected: satisfaction. The eggs were warm in her hands. The animals were not afraid of her once they grew used to her presence. The hay smelled sweet. One of the goats gave birth. Daehyun helped deliver the kid. It was difficult. The mother struggled. But Daehyun was patient, gentle. He encouraged the mother, supported her. When the kid finally emerged, wet and wobbling, Daehyun's face showed pure joy. He cleaned the baby carefully, made sure it could breathe, helped it stand on shaky legs. Hyejin watched in silence. In her empire, the weak were cold. A difficult birth meant both mother and offspring would be destroyed. It was efficient. It kept the bloodline strong. But watching the kid take its first steps, seeing the mother nuzzle it with obvious love, Hyejin felt something stir in her chest, something she had no name for. That night, she asked Daehyun why he helped her. She was an alien, a stranger, possibly dangerous. He owed her nothing. He gained nothing from keeping her safe. In fact, he risked much. If others found out, there could be trouble. So why did he do it? Daehyun's answer was simple. Because you needed help. Because all living things have value. Because it was the right thing to do. Hyejin pressed him. But what if she had been an enemy? What if she had tried to hurt him? Would he still have helped? Daehyun thought for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes. Because even enemies are still living creatures. Even enemies deserve compassion. Hyejin laid awake that night in the barn. She thought about her empire, about the wars she had fought, the enemies she had killed, the planets she had helped conquer. She had never questioned it before, never wondered if there was another way. But now, watching Daehyun live his simple life, she began to doubt everything she had been taught. Maybe strength was not about domination. Maybe there was power in kindness, in choosing to build rather than destroy. It was a dangerous thought, one that could never be spoken in the Empire. But here, in this quiet barn on this strange planet, the thought took root. And grew. They came on the 7th day. Hyejin heard them first. Her ears were sharper than human ones. The sound of engines cutting through the atmosphere. Military engines. She knew that sound well. Her scales prickled with alarm. She ran from the vegetable garden to find Daehyun. He was in the barn repairing a harness. She grabbed his arm, pointed to the sky. He did not understand at first. Then he heard it too, a distant roar growing louder. They both stepped outside. 3 ships descended from the clouds, sleek, black, covered in weapons. Galactic patrol vessels. Hyejin's blood ran cold. They had found her. The ships landed in the wheat field, right next to the crater from her crash. Dust and wind billowed out. The wheat bent and broke under the force. Daehyun watched his crops being destroyed, but he said nothing. His jaw tightened. That was all. Hyejin moved to go back inside the barn, to hide, but Daehyun stopped her. He shook his head. Too late for hiding. They had already scanned the area. They knew she was here. Better to face them. She did not want to. She was not afraid of battle, but she did not want Daehyun caught in the middle. He had been kind to her. He did not deserve what was coming. The ships powered down. Ramps extended. Soldiers marched out. 20 of them. Full combat armor, energy weapons ready. They moved in formation. Professional. Efficient. At their head walked Commander Minho. Hyejin recognized him immediately. He was famous in the patrol. Fair but ruthless. He never failed a mission. Minho stopped 10 meters from the barn. His armor gleamed in the sunlight. His helmet retracted. His face was stern. Handsome in a cold way. His eyes scanned the farm, then settled on Daehyun. He spoke, his voice amplified by his suit. Demanding that the human surrender the draconian fugitive, Daehyun did not move. He stood in front of the barn door, his arms crossed. He looked small compared to the armored soldiers. Fragile, human, but he did not back down. He said something. Hyejin's translator caught most of it. This is my land. You have no authority here. The soldiers laughed. One of them raised his weapon, pointed it at Daehyun. The threat was clear. Move or die. But Daehyun stood firm. He picked up a pitchfork that leaned against the barn wall. It was a farming tool, old, made of wood and metal. Against energy weapons and power armor, it was nothing, less than nothing. But Daehyun held it like a spear. Ready to fight, Minho raised his hand. The soldier lowered his weapon. The commander stepped forward. He studied Daehyun with interest. His expression changed. Surprise, confusion, he spoke again. More carefully this time, asking why a human would defend an alien warrior. Asking what Hyejin had offered him: money, technology, power. Daehyun's answer was simple. She needed help. That is all. Nothing more. No payment. No bargain. Just a living creature who was hurt. Minho shook his head. He did not believe it. In his experience, no one did anything without gain. There was always an angle. Always a price. He accused Daehyun of lying. Of hiding something. Inside the barn, Hyejin listened. She could hear the conversation through the walls. Her wound still ached, but she could move. She could fight. She should run out there, surrender, end this before Daehyun got hurt. But something stopped her. She wanted to see what he would do. Wanted to know if his kindness extended even to this. Even when it meant danger, Daehyun did not waver. He said that all life had value. That it did not matter where someone came from. Human, alien, enemy, friend. All deserved compassion. All deserved help. The soldiers laughed again. Louder this time. It was the most ridiculous thing they had ever heard. One of them called Daehyun a fool. Said that humans were weak. Soft. That they would never survive in the real galaxy. Minho held up his hand again. Silence fell. He looked at Daehyun differently now. There was something in his eyes. Respect. Or perhaps curiosity. He asked if Daehyun knew who Hyejin was. What she had done. How many worlds the Draconian Empire had destroyed. How many innocents had died by her people's hands. Daehyun admitted he did not know the details. But it did not matter. Whatever Hyejin had done in the past did not change what she needed now. She was injured, alone, afraid, and he would not turn away someone in need, not for any reason. This was his choice, his responsibility, and he would stand by it. The barn door opened. Hyejin stepped out. She moved slowly, her hand pressed against her bandaged side, but she stood tall, proud, her amber eyes blazed. She spoke in the galactic common tongue, telling Minho to leave the human alone, that this was between them, that Daehyun was not part of this conflict. Minho regarded her coolly. He said she was a deserter, that she had fled from battle, left her comrades to die, that she must face trial for cowardice. Hyejin did not deny it. She said she would go with them willingly, but only if they left the human and his farm untouched. No harm, no punishment. He had done nothing wrong. Daehyun stepped between them. He spoke firmly, saying that Hee-jin was not leaving, that she was under his protection, that if the patrol wanted her, they would have to go through him. The soldiers shifted, raised their weapons. The situation was spiraling. Violence was coming. Everyone could feel it. Minho stared at Daehyun, a human farmer, unarmed except for a pitchfork, standing against trained soldiers, against impossible odds. It was suicide, stupid, pointless, and yet there was something in Daehyun's eyes, something that made Minho pause. Not fear, not bravado, just calm certainty, the absolute conviction that what he was doing was right. For a long moment, no one moved. The wind blew through the wheat. The sun beat down. Tension crackled in the air like electricity. One word from Minho and the soldiers would fire. Daehyun would die. Hee-jin would be captured. The farm would burn. It would be over in seconds, but Minho did not give that word. Instead, he asked a question. He asked Daehyun what made humans so willing to die for strangers. What made them throw away their lives for principles that had no practical value? Daehyun thought for a moment. Then he answered, "Because if we do not stand up for what is right, then what is the point of living at all?" Silence. The soldiers looked at each other, unsure. Minho's face was unreadable. He turned to Hee-jin, asked her what she thought of humans now. After spending time with one, after seeing how they lived, Hee-jin stepped forward, stood beside Daehyun. She said that humans were stronger than anyone knew, that their strength did not come from weapons or armor. It came from something deeper, something her empire had forgotten. Minho nodded slowly. He made a decision. He ordered his soldiers to stand down. They hesitated, questioned the order, but Minho repeated it, firm, final, the weapons lowered. The soldiers stepped back. Minho looked at Daehyun one more time, then at Hee-jin. He said this was not over, that he would need to report what he had found. But for now they would leave. The patrol soldiers returned to their ships. The engines roared to life. Dust swirled, and then they were gone, rising into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. Daehyun lowered his pitchfork. His hands were shaking, the adrenaline wearing off. Hee-jin put a hand on his shoulder, squeezed gently, a gesture of gratitude, of respect. They had survived, but both knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Something had changed today, something that would ripple across the stars. Nothing would ever be the same. 3 days passed. Daehyun and Hee-jin worked the farm together. Neither spoke much about what had happened, but the air felt different, charged with waiting. They both knew the patrol would return. The only question was when, and what would happen then. On the morning of the 4th day, a single ship appeared, smaller than the patrol vessels, unarmed. It landed gently in the clearing beside the barn. The ramp extended. Commander Minho walked out, alone. No soldiers, no weapons, just him in simple uniform. Hee-jin tensed. Daehyun put a hand on her arm. "Wait, let's see what he wants." Minho approached slowly, his hands visible, empty. He stopped a respectful distance away, asked if they could talk. Daehyun nodded, invited him to sit. They gathered around a simple wooden table outside the house. Daehyun brought water and bread. Minho accepted. A gesture of peace, of negotiation. Minho spoke first. He said he had spent the last 3 days thinking about what Daehyun had said, about humans, about what he had witnessed. He admitted it troubled him. In all his years as a commander, he had never seen anything like it. A civilian standing against trained soldiers, not out of stupidity or ignorance, but out of conviction, out of belief in something greater than self-preservation. Hee-jin asked what he wanted, why he came back. Minho said he wanted to understand, to learn. He had questions about humans, about Earth, about why they were the way they were. Daehyun was confused. He said he was just a farmer, not a teacher or a diplomat. But Minho insisted. Sometimes, he said, the simple view is the clearest. They talked for hours. Minho asked about human history, about wars and peace, about how humans treated each other. Daehyun answered honestly. He did not hide the bad parts. Humans fought. They were cruel sometimes. They made mistakes. But they also loved. They built. They created. They tried to be better. Not always successfully, but they tried. Minho listened carefully. Then he asked the key question. What made humans help those who could not help themselves? What made them protect the weak, care for the sick, defend strangers? These behaviors made no strategic sense. They offered no advantage. Often they brought danger. So why did humans do it? Daehyun thought for a long time. Finally, he said that humans believed everyone had worth, not because of strength or power or usefulness, but because they were alive, because they existed. And existence itself had value. This was not something humans invented. It was something they felt, deep in their hearts. It was what made them human. Hyejin spoke then. She said that in the Draconian Empire, the strong survived and the weak perished. It was natural law, the way of the universe. But watching Daehyun, she had begun to wonder. What if there was another way? What if protecting the weak made a species stronger? Not weaker. What if compassion was not a flaw but a strength? Minho stood abruptly. He walked to his ship, returned with a data pad. He said he had done research, standard procedure when encountering a new species. He had accessed the Galactic database, compiled information about Earth, about humans. The results were disturbing. He activated the pad, showed them the data. Earth was classified as a death world. Class 9. One of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. Extreme weather. Predators everywhere. Diseases. Natural disasters. Most species could not survive there, would not even try. Yet humans thrived. They spread across the entire planet, adapted to every environment. Desert, ice, jungle, mountain. Humans lived everywhere. More data. Human biology. They were persistence hunters. Could run for hours without stopping. Could track prey across vast distances. Could go days without food or water. Could survive injuries that would kill other species. Their immune systems fought off infections that would devastate entire civilizations. They healed quickly, adapted rapidly, were incredibly difficult to kill. Daehyun looked uncomfortable. He said that humans did not think of themselves that way. They just lived their lives, did what they had to do. Minho shook his head. That was exactly the point. To humans, surviving on a death world was normal. They did not realize how exceptional they were, how dangerous. More information appeared on the pad. Cultural data, art, music, literature, philosophy. Humans had created beauty in the middle of chaos, had built civilizations on a planet that actively tried to kill them, had developed concepts like justice and mercy and love, not because these things helped them survive, but because they believed these things mattered. Hyejin stared at the data. She said it explained so much. Why Daehyun was not afraid. Why he helped her without question. Why he stood against armed soldiers. To him it was just another challenge. Another problem to solve. Humans lived every day on a planet that could kill them. What was one patrol squad compared to that? Minho agreed. But there was more. He showed them another file. Military assessments. Projections. If humans ever developed space travel. If they ever left their planet. If they ever joined the galactic community. What would happen? The predictions were alarming. Humans would not be weak. Would not be prey. They would be apex predators. Top of the food chain. But there was something else. Something that made Minho return. Humans combined physical capability with moral philosophy. They were warriors who valued peace. Killers who chose compassion. They could be the most dangerous species in the galaxy, or the most beneficial. It depended on how they were approached, how they were treated. Daehyun asked what this meant for them. For Earth. Minho said that was why he came. The Galactic Council had rules. Primitive species were not contacted, were left alone to develop naturally. Earth qualified as primitive. No space travel, no advanced weapons. They should be ignored. left undisturbed for centuries, but Hyejin's presence changed everything. First contact had been made, unintentionally, but it happened. Now the Council had to decide: quarantine Earth, keep humans isolated, or open diplomatic relations, bring them into the galactic community. It was a momentous decision, one that would affect billions of lives across thousands of worlds. Hyejin asked what Minho would recommend. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said he would recommend contact. Alliance. Not because humans were dangerous, but because they offered something the galaxy desperately needed. Hope. The idea that strength and compassion could coexist. That power did not have to mean domination. The galaxy was old, tired. Most species had given up on ideals like mercy and kindness. They were seen as weaknesses, luxuries that advanced civilizations could not afford. But humans had survived on a death world by helping each other, by working together, by believing that every life mattered. Maybe that was what the galaxy needed to remember. Daehyun said he did not know about all that. He was just a farmer. He did what felt right. Minho smiled. That was exactly why humans were so important. They did not calculate, did not scheme. They followed their hearts. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. They survived, thrived, built something beautiful on a planet that should have broken them. The sun was setting. Orange light painted the fields. Minho stood, said he had to return, make his report. It would take time. The council moved slowly. But change was coming. Earth would not remain hidden forever. Daehyun asked what they should do. Minho said to keep living, keep being human. That was all anyone could ask. As Minho's ship lifted off, Hyejin and Daehyun stood together. The farm looked peaceful in the fading light. Nothing had changed physically, but everything felt different. The universe was watching now, judging, deciding. And somehow, a simple farmer and a wounded warrior had become the center of it all. They did not ask for this responsibility, did not want it. But they would face it, together, because that was what you did. You faced what came. You helped those who needed it. You did what was right, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. That was the human way. 6 months passed. The Galactic Council moved slowly as Minho had warned, but they moved. Delegations were sent. Observers, scientists, diplomats. They came quietly, secretly, landing in remote places, watching, learning, trying to understand humanity before revealing themselves to the world. Daehyun's farm remained the unofficial embassy. It was neutral ground, a place where humans and aliens could meet without fanfare or fear. Minho visited often. He had become something like a friend. He would sit at the wooden table and talk about the galaxy, about the different species, the politics, the wars, the peace treaties that never lasted. Hyejin stayed. Her ship was still broken, could have been repaired. Minho offered several times, but she always refused. She said she was not ready to leave. The truth was she did not want to. For the first time in her life, she felt at peace, working the farm, learning from Daehyun, discovering who she was beyond being a warrior. She was good with the animals, patient, gentle. The goats followed her around. The chickens did not flee when she approached. She had a natural understanding of growing things, could tell when plants needed water, when soil needed rest. Daehyun joked that she was a better farmer than warrior. She did not disagree. Word spread among the alien civilizations, slowly at first, then faster. Rumors, stories, about a human who stood against soldiers, about a draconian warrior who chose farming over fighting, about a planet of death that produced people who valued life above all else. Some dismissed the stories as fiction. Others were intrigued. A few were afraid. The Draconian Empire sent agents. They wanted Hyejin back, dead or alive. She was a deserter, a traitor. An example had to be made. But Minho's patrol had declared the farm under protection. Any attack would be considered an act of war. The Empire calculated, decided Hyejin was not worth a war. Yet, they would wait, watch, remember. Other visitors came. Peaceful ones. Scientists who wanted to study Earth. Merchants who saw opportunity. Refugees who heard about human compassion and sought shelter. Daehyun welcomed them all. His farm became a crossroads, a meeting place, the first bridge between Earth and the stars. The local humans noticed. Of course they did. Strange lights in the sky, odd visitors at Daehyun's farm. Rumors spread through the town. Some wanted to investigate, to expose the truth. But Daehyun had lived there his whole life. People trusted him. When he said everything was fine, they believed him. Mostly. One evening a ship arrived that was different from the others, larger, more ornate. It carried the seal of the Galactic Council. Minho came with them. His face was serious. He said the Council had made their decision. About Earth, about humanity, about first contact. Daehyun and Hyejin listened carefully. The Council had voted. Earth would be granted protected status. No invasion, no colonization, no exploitation. Humanity would be allowed to develop at their own pace. When they achieved space travel on their own, formal contact would be made. Until then, the galaxy would watch, wait, protect from the shadows. But there was more. The Council offered Daehyun a position, ambassador, liaison, the human voice in galactic affairs. He would speak for his planet, negotiate treaties, build relationships. It was an honor, a responsibility, a burden. Daehyun was quiet for a long time. Then he refused. He said he was a farmer, not a politician, not a diplomat. He did not understand galactic politics, did not want to. His place was here, in the soil, growing food, tending animals, living simply. That was his strength, his contribution. Let others speak for humanity, others who wanted that responsibility, who understood that world. He would stay where he belonged. The council delegates were surprised. In their experience, everyone wanted power, status, influence. But Daehyun genuinely did not. He was content with his life, with his farm, with his choices. It was another lesson, another example of human peculiarity. They accepted his refusal, but they asked if he would continue to host visitors. To be a neutral ground. That Daehyun could do. Minho stayed behind after the others left. He looked tired. He said the galaxy was changing. Humanity was the catalyst. Different species were talking to each other in new ways. Old enemies were reconsidering old wars. Some empires were softening their approaches. Others were hardening, preparing. Humanity's existence had upset the balance. Hyejin asked if that was good or bad. Minho said he did not know. Change was always dangerous, but stagnation was death. The galaxy had been stagnant for millennia. Maybe disruption was necessary. Maybe humanity was exactly what was needed. Or maybe they would start a war that consumed everything. Time would tell. Daehyun made tea. They sat together in the fading light. 3 beings from 3 different worlds, united by circumstance, by choice, by friendship. They talked about small things, the weather, the crops, a new calf that had been born, normal things, simple things, but comfortable, real. As Minho prepared to leave, he said something that struck Daehyun deeply. He said that humanity's greatest weapon was not their physical capability, not their resilience, not their adaptability. It was their optimism, their stubborn belief that things could be better, that kindness mattered, that love was stronger than hate. Most species had lost that belief, had become cynical, practical, cold, but humans kept believing, even in darkness, even in pain, even when logic said hope was foolish. They hoped anyway, loved anyway, Helped anyway. It was illogical, impractical, strategically unsound, and absolutely beautiful. That was what the galaxy needed to remember. That was what humans offered. Not advanced technology, not military might, but hope. After Minho left, Daehyun and Hyejin walked through the fields. The wheat swayed in the evening breeze. Stars appeared overhead, more stars than usual. Ships, observers, watching, waiting. Daehyun asked Hyejin if she ever regretted staying, if she missed her old life, the battles, the glory, the purpose she once knew. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said she had found a new purpose, a better one. She was learning what it meant to create instead of destroy, to nurture instead of conquer, to live for something beyond war. It was harder than fighting. Required different strength, but it was worth it. She was becoming someone she actually liked. That was worth everything. They reached the crater where her ship had crashed. It was still there, overgrown now with grass and wildflowers. Nature reclaiming what was hers. The ship could be excavated, repaired. Hyejin could leave any time, return to the stars, to her people. But she would not. This was home now. This small farm on this strange planet, with this unusual human who had shown her a different way to be strong. Daehyun said that more would come. More aliens, more questions, more complications. Their quiet life was over. Things would keep changing, getting more complex, more difficult. He hoped she was ready for that. Hyejin smiled. A real smile. Not the warrior's grin she once wore. Something softer, more genuine. She said she was ready. They would face it together. However it came, the galaxy was watching Earth now. Some with hope, some with fear, some with greed. Empires made plans, alliances formed, betrayals were plotted. The future was uncertain, dangerous, full of potential for catastrophe or miracle. But on a small farm in the middle of nowhere, two beings from different worlds worked the land, grew food, cared for animals, lived simply. And somehow, impossibly, that simple act of living with kindness and purpose had changed everything. The dragon woman who fled from battle had found peace on a human's farm. The human who only wanted to tend his crops had become the bridge between worlds. Nothing was ever the same again. For them, for Earth, for the galaxy. The story was just beginning, and whatever came next, they would face it the only way they knew how. With courage, with compassion, with the unshakable belief that all life mattered. That was the human way. And maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to change the stars themselves.